Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today, I have Devin Dang, who is an Austin-based real estate investor who focuses on tackling the loneliness epidemic through the co-living community, which is just so freaking cool and so interesting. And I'm so excited to just dive into this all with you. Thank you for coming on the show, Devin.
Olivia, your energy is infectious. I am hyped up. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it. Okay, Devin. So before the real estate investing, because I know you're a full-time entrepreneur. That's correct, right?
Sorry, I just got back from Mexico, so I'm switching languages here.
I love it. So what were you doing before? Like, who was Devin, even before the real estate investing, all of that stuff?
Yeah. Great question. I think we can go back to, let's set the context of when I was 21 years old. I'm a local Austinite as of about 8 years ago. I think now everybody's moving here. The average time has been 1 or 2 years. So 8 years I consider local Austinite at this point. I was at school, UT Austin. I was 21 years old, and I had no trajectory of where I was going. I was struggling through college. I graduated with a 2-point-something GPA, and I just really lacked a sense of responsibility, accountability. And I think a lot of it stemmed from some sort of insecurity of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I have two choices. I can either go and work on it or go find distractions. And I unfortunately chose the latter. And the reason I bring all that up is because as I was going through college, real estate was not in the picture at all. But to get a little bit of context before that, my family's house got foreclosed on back in 2008. So we were just always moving around. We always didn't really have a sense of stability. So I knew that at some point I'd want that. So towards the tail end of college, I realized like I have to get my life together. I have to go and make something of it. And I was at my summer internship at this company called JCPenney. You might have heard of it. The store you walk through to get to the store you're actually trying to go to. And we got to a town hall and they unveiled this statue of like all these people's names. And it showed the people that had been there for 20, 30, 40 years. Like I've been here for 2 weeks and I can't wait for this to be over.
Oh my gosh.
How can I do this for 20 years? And I was faced with the decision. It's like the pain of staying the same or pain of going and doing something different. So that next year, I dove all into all the podcasts, all the books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Bigger Pockets, and YouTube, filled my algorithm with it. And from that college kid that actually had no purpose, I started to have a sense of belief that, hey, maybe I can make something of my life because I got to hear the stories of other people that were teachers, janitors, and just normal people like me that actually made something. So that complete transition led me to go into a whole career of join Zillow, real estate tech, went down the path and just started investing in real estate with a bunch of other specialties from short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, co-living. But all that stemmed from just a time of, hey, let's just dive in, get really, really deep into this and meet some amazing people.
I love that. Okay, there's so much to touch on before we even get into like the co-living strategy and all of that. But like, so out of curiosity, what did your parents do for work?
Yeah, so both my parents growing up were teachers. So At the end of the day, they traded their time for money. And you go to school, get your degree, you trade your time for money, you get your paycheck, and you get your liabilities. You may buy an asset or two, you have your liabilities, and now you just kind of go through the cycle. And that's what I saw growing up.
Yeah. And I'm curious, growing up, did you guys ever like talk about money or talk about like the foreclosure or anything like that? Did your parents ever educate you on what that looked like and why that happened?
No. Yeah. Well, really good question. No, absolutely not. In an Asian American household growing up, there's a couple things that are taboo. And one of the most taboo things that you can talk about is money. And for us, my grandparents came over from the Vietnam War in the 70s. And you have to understand the mindset of somebody coming over from war, being completely pushed out of the country, coming to the States, that when you come here with nothing and you have that scarcity mindset that you could lose everything and get pushed out of your own family home, your own country, your own city in a heartbeat, the last thing you want to talk about is the things that make you really uncomfortable. And money was one of those big things. So I didn't understand it, but even though we didn't talk about it, I could feel it. And because we didn't talk about it, I think I always had a lingering sense of like anxiety around money growing up. I just did not dive into it until Bigger Pockets and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these other things, right around post-college.
Totally. No, and I touch on that because what a lot of people don't realize is part of what's keeping them stuck is that money mindset that they have. And it's like that non-willingness to confront their finances and understand where they're going. Because I remember even when I was I went to college, I went to grad school for like engineering and technology management, and I still had zero understanding of finances, of what really having a credit card meant and what that looked like. Like I graduated, went on a big trip. Don't get me wrong. Love the trip. Would not change it for the world. But I ended up in $25,000 worth of credit card debt. And I just sat on that for like a year because I didn't even know like what that meant. I didn't understand how to pay it off. I was just like, oh, I have a job. I'll be able to pay this off without actually thinking about what that actually meant, And so for a lot of people, it's like step number one is figuring out like what is money, how to succeed with handling money, dealing money, investing it, understanding how it works before even getting into real estate investing.
100%. There's so many steps that you have to go through before you ever buy your first property that people tend to skip. Like, I just want to go right into it and buy it. But first, where's your mindset around money? What is your relationship around money? And it's super quick to get into debt right away. One trip later, $25,000 in, that could happen in a heartbeat. And the scary thing is that the longer you don't address it, the heavier it becomes and the harder it is to finally address that thing. And it's this negative feedback loop. You wake up another day, you ignore it, don't look at it, and then the debt builds. And then now it's an even bigger weight to handle. So I get it. I know how difficult it can be.
Totally. And no, I love that you talked about how, you went to JCPenney, you saw these people who are working for 20 years or so. I kind of faced that same thing because I was at Chevron, so oil and gas engineer, and people are there for 30 plus years, right? Like I'm watching so many people retire, and I just remember looking around and being like, I don't want that. I don't want to be there. So I think for everyone out there, it's like you really have to take a look at where, within your business or within your company, what's the next step? Where are you going to be in 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years? Is that really where you want to be? And if the answer is no, you have every power in your being to change it.
100%. It's a choice. It's a choice. And because my first job, I was 16 years old. I was a dishwasher for a restaurant, and I traded my time for money. And if you're in a corporate job right now, there's nothing wrong with that. I bought my first house hack and first property because of the 9-to-5. There were so many things I gained from it. But after you use the leverage and the benefits from it, if you don't want to continue to be in your corporate job and you're still doing it, just know it's your absolute choice to start taking the steps. Like what you start doing today, the micro habits you start tomorrow, start the next week, is going to be where you're going to be in the next year. But you have to start those micro habits now, right?
So what actually led you to taking that first step of buying your first property? Because I know you said you listened to the podcast, maybe you started going to meetups. I know so many people even out there, they're listening to the podcast, right? They're so excited, but they still can't make the first move, right? So what helped you kind of get over that hump and get started? And did you ever struggle with anything before getting that first property in terms of like anything stopping you?
Absolutely. It's so easy on paper, but there's an emotional side of it, just like the money scripts and anxiety we have about money. It's also a mindset around real estate of can I even do this, or do I deserve to do this? And what I did that has helped me not only just in real estate, but anything I wanted to do. Go and make that first solo travel trip. Hey, go and buy that first property. Hey, leave that job. The thing that I've always done tactically that's really helped me is burn the boat. Have you ever heard the story of burning the boat?
No, I don't think I have, but tell everyone.
Okay. Cortez and his army came into an island, and they were about to prepare for war. And as him and his men got off the ship, Cortez burned the boat and said, there's only one way off this island. Halfway through battle, you cannot retreat and jump back onto our boat because I burned it. The only way off is off our enemy's ship. And I think a lot of the times that it's so easy to kick the can down the road because there's this paradox of time that we have more time and then we end up not doing things because we think you have more time. And just that very mindset is the reason why we run out of time when we get to the end of that cycle, end of your life, and then we realize we didn't do the thing we wanted to do. So as it relates back to buying the first property, I told the people around me, the ones closest to me, and be very careful of who you share your dreams and desires with. But the people closest to me, I'm buying a property by this date at this time, and here's how I'm going to do it. And then I started setting up automatic savings rules. So I knew I needed at that time $20,000 for a down payment. It was 2 years out. So I set up an automatic savings rule that every single month it would withdraw the exact amount I needed from each paycheck. So by the time in 2 years, I would hit that $20,000 number. So number one, my system accounted for it because regardless of how I felt that month, that money was coming out and going in a bank account I couldn't see. Number one. Number two, people knew about it. So by the time that time came around, I had no excuses. I had the money ready and people are like, is it coming or not? And I'm the type of person I need that accountability.
Yeah.
So I will tell the people around me anything that I'm doing.
No, I feel that so hard. And it's so important to actually put a deadline on things. I think a lot of people have this weird relationship with deadlines, right? Because it's like, what if you don't reach it, right? If you don't reach it, you just move the deadline a little bit further. But by having that deadline, you are always going to have it in the back of your mind as something that needs to happen. And even if you are a month or two late, or even if it could be a year late, but you still have that deadline, and that's gonna let you not give up on your goal.
100%. And I would say another thing, because I work with a lot of first-time buyers and first-time investors as an agent, the thing that they're super, super worried about is as they start to prepare for buying their first property, am I going to be ready? What do I need to know? I need to learn the entire tax code. And then I need to figure out exactly which LLC structure. And then I need to learn how my DTI and all this works. All those things are important at some point, but that is just creative procrastination. What I mean by that is we know the thing we need to do, and we'll creatively find ways to push back that deadline of this thing I need to be doing. So a tactical example is tomorrow, I really need to write that email to my boss. That's a little bit tough of a conversation. But instead of me doing that, I create this checklist in the morning. I'm like, let me go clear my inbox for today. Let me go to my phone and let me go ahead and delete all my duplicate contacts. Like that's really, really important right now. And I think we do that in real estate. It's like there's all these good sounding reasons of why we should wait to buy that property because I need to understand this thing, but you don't. Go and find your core team. Find people that are way smarter at you than that, your lender, your agent, your CPA, and lean on them. Understand conceptually, just like understand enough, and then you're ready to jump in. So I think that's the thing. It's like you don't need to know everything.
Also, you're going to learn more by actually doing the thing. Like I have so many students who originally come to me, they say they've been looking to buy real estate for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And then I tell them to actually just put a freaking offer in. Like put a few offers in and get under contract. And it's so funny because the number of like eyes that just open once they get under contract and they go through the process, they're like, wow, I've learned so much more just in these last 2 weeks than these years of trying to compile all this information and this data and all this. Yeah.
So good. So good.
I love it. Okay. Well, so Devin, tell me how did you buy your first property? What was your first property? How did that all work?
Yes, I was gung-ho in house hacking.
Yes.
Every single house hacking YouTube video. I ended up building my brand around house hacking because I truly believe that is the absolute best way to get started in real estate. And I'm sure we've talked about it a few times on the show, but for anybody that doesn't know house hacking, it's simply number one, the easiest way to get into real estate for one reason, leverage. When you go and buy a property and decide to live in it as a primary residence, you can put as little as 3.5 to 5% down instead of 20% down. And then after that, you turn it into a rental. And while you're there, you rent out extra spaces, units. So if it's a single family home, you rent out extra bedrooms. If it's a multifamily, you rent out extra units. If it's an ADU, extra space. So at the end of the day, it's just renting out extra space to reduce your housing costs. So that was my method. Ended up finding a single family home in Austin right at the beginning of 2021 before all the prices went up. I literally bought like 2 months before prices just absolutely soared.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was an absolute game changer. So part of that is luck. You can't time that.
Yeah.
But bought a single family home, 4 beds, lived in one of the rooms and rented out the other 3. So while I was living in the property, I was not only living for free, but I was making $500. I was getting paid $500 to live in my own property. And now that property today still runs as a rent by the room, or otherwise known as a co-living property.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, everyone knows I love the house hacking strategy as well. And you can even put as little as 0% down if you go either NACA or you go, there are so many different loan programs. I have one of my students, Cyan and Corey, they're both going through NACA, 0% down. This is ridiculous. It's a joke.
Amazing.
You know?
Free house.
But then the cool thing too is it's not, I think a lot of people think that house hacking is just for beginners, but like I know people who are house hacking $4 million properties, right? Like you can get so creative with it, even if like you can have a giant house and then have a bunch of ADUs on the property, or you can just rent out the pool house if you have a pool. So many different ways to do it, like throughout your entire lifetime.
Yeah, there's always a strategy that fits for you. People come to me and say, well, I got a kid, or I'm married now, I'm an older and I can't do it. I'm like, well, what's the version of it that works for you? And I think people want to find a one size fits all. And I would say that, if you want a unique life, then you'll have to have unique outcomes. You have to make a little bit of unique decisions. And then I think that just means just getting a little bit creative.
Yeah. Totally. Well, that's like I tell people right now. It's like, oh yeah, I just bought a house. I'll be living in the basement. Everyone's like, what? Why are you living in your basement? I'm like, guys, it's a really nice basement. Okay.
It's a nice basement. Yeah, I'd never live in the master of my own houses. And I don't know. It's something about lifestyle inflation that I'm really careful about because it's really easy to tip over. So for anybody that's curious, lifestyle inflation is when you now achieve a certain lifestyle, certain luxuries, certain cost of living, certain amenities. It's really hard to go back. And I think I've always been really careful to slowly turn up that dial. One day I'll live in the master of my own home.
I know, especially, and I will say it's going to change throughout your life too, because I think, especially when you're younger, right? You don't have kids, you don't have whatever that looks like. It's really easy to make those sacrifices. I think it does start to get a little bit more difficult once you have a child and all that stuff. But then I know people who go back to, creatively house hacking later on in life because their kids are out of the house and they're like, we don't need all this space. So there's so many ways that you can do it. And even when you're thinking of buying properties, like you can still think of it as a very long-term solution, right?
100%. Yeah, at the end of the day, the name of the game is holding on to the properties for long periods of time, gaining the appreciation. And my original strategy was just one house hack a year for 5 years in a row, and then I'm done. Things never going according to plan. Things end up scaling up faster, but that was the original plan. So I was like, if I buy 5 homes and all 5 of those homes are paid off by the time I retire, the average price point home here in Austin is out $500,000, 500,000. 5 homes, that's 2.5 million
in 5 years.
By the end of 5 years with doing nothing else. So for me, it was an absolute no-brainer.
Okay, y'all, do I have something exciting for you? Now, I just came out with a brand new free training on exactly how you can get started investing in real estate within the next 3 months. Because if you're someone who wants more freedom in your life, the ability to travel the world and do the things that you actually want to do in life, you're going to want to listen up. Trust me. Now, this training is freaking awesome. I literally go in and spill the tea on the number one strategy that is working right now, like literally today in today's market. And I go over how to look at deals and make sure that they actually cash flow, and how to set your properties up so that you can run them from anywhere in the world. Like I literally have managed my properties from over 6 different time zones. So if you are stuck in analysis paralysis, you don't know where to start when it comes to real estate investing, but you know that it's something that you want to do in the future, this training is going to be for you. So to check it out, click the link in the show notes or DM me the word hack, like HACK on Instagram, and I will send you the link. Now let's dive back into the show.
No, I also feel that because that was my original plan too. It's like one property a year for 5 years. I'll be able to quit my job, blah, 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 blah. I literally quit my job after one property.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me, I think that's such an interesting topic to talk about because so many people ask me, how did I quit my job after only having one property? So how did you do that?
Yes. So after this first property we talked about, very first house hack, when I moved out, that property ended up starting cash flowing about $1,300. So it was great extra income. And then I was at my job at Zillow in real estate tech. And for me, people start to have that transition from, hey, I got my W-2. I'm starting to buy real estate investments. I don't see myself staying here at this corporate job. What do I do next? And I say, this is the absolute best time to try out as many things as you can.
Yeah.
You don't know if you like strawberries until you try a strawberry and you tell yourself if you like it or not. And it's just like different side hustles or opportunities for you to leave your job. It's like, what is it going to be for you? And for me, it was, I ended up starting selling homes as a real estate agent part-time while I had my full-time job. And I think the biggest mistake I see people do is they jump ship too early. They quit their job and then they start trying that new thing, hoping it works. And then I think it's really difficult in that position because you're making decisions out of scarcity because like this thing has to work. And then if you already spent 6 months in it, the sunk cost fallacy comes in. Well, I've already spent 6 months, but what if you hate it? Like you have no context of this is the work that I enjoy. This is what I expected. So all that to say is I started selling some homes on the side, just slinging some homes, sold like 5 or 6 homes that first year while I had my corporate job. And there was a moment when my side hustle could not grow anymore because of my full-time job. And that was the safety I needed to go ahead and quit my job and jump into real estate full-time. That following year, that was my first year full-time as a real estate agent, ended up top 5% here in Austin and realized like, this is what I love. This is what kind of the next stage was for me. So that's kind of how it all shook out.
I love that. And I also feel, it's weird, our stories are really similar. But I also got my real estate license on the side, sold like 5 homes that first year. I was like, I can do this. But I actually knew at that point too that I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I was like, okay, this is definitely a side hustle. I enjoy it-ish, but it's definitely not like my passion. But I knew that I had other avenues that I could try out. And I was like, worst case scenario, literally right now, if I stay in my house and do nothing but eat ramen, I'm Gucci.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm not thriving, but I'm good.
Exactly.
I'm good, right?
Exactly. Well, and it was so funny because I was trying to buy more properties at the time. I remember when I quit, I was actually under contract on a property and like I couldn't sign. I was out on the offshore oil and gas platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. I couldn't sign my purchase agreements or any other documents because with Chevron, they block your internet access. So I couldn't get on Gmail. I couldn't get on anything. I was having to somehow message my friend who was onshore to sign into my Gmail and sign things for me. I was like, this is just not working. This is not working.
Is that allowed?
Yes, right. I know.
I love it. You got to make it happen. And I think those are the times that people look back at. And I love it. I really miss being stretched and trying multiple different things and taking that risk. And I think I see a lot of people in my life, they're just stacking up the dough and that's great. Buying that next property. But if you're not spending some level of it, it's not risking it, trying out that new thing, now's the time to do it. Because you're not getting any younger. Or
doing the things that, you always wanted to do, right? I remember I had glorified being a nomad. So I spent 2 years being a nomad right after I quit. And then I was like, I'm tired of this. So I'm going to go, but it's I'm so glad I did that for that period of time. And there's so many people out there who really also want to go be a nomad for a bit, but they're not willing to jump and do it. And then they're going to look back in 10, 20, 30 years and be like, damn, I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I would have done this or that,
I love this. On this specifically, have you Heard of the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins?
I haven't read it yet though.
Got it. That was the book that led me to go and solo travel for the first time for 2 months.
Oh my gosh, I
And
love that.
the reason why, and I think this is kind of the next stage of real estate investors. Number one, I have the doubt. I don't have the community. I don't really know where to start. I get into the community and then I buy my first property and then I start accumulating a couple of properties. So at this stage where you start accumulating a couple of properties, you're starting to build up your cash flow. You're starting to build up your assets. And then somebody just hoards all that money. And Die with Zero basically says at some point, there's a maximum, there's a diminishing return on your money as you get older. And what I mean by that is you hear the narrative, like, I will go and travel once I retire. But at 65, you're not going to be able to do half the activities you can do now. At, just for my example, at my age, like you're maybe have the time to travel, but do you have the health? Do you have the same mindset? Do you have the same experiences? So all that to say, there's some stage. I'm not saying go spend all your money tomorrow and go into credit card.
Although if you like, to be fair though, I did that and it all turned out great.
It all turned out great. And it's like you have to maximize for fulfillment and happiness, not just the numbers and dollars and cents in your bank account.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000 freaking percent, 1,000%. And it's so funny because I remember, so I talked about going to Portugal for a few months as well. And I remember being there. I was just traveling. I literally just kind of took a break from life. This was about 8 or 9 months after I quit my corporate job. I was like, I just need a break to go like figure out what I want to do. I had like my cash flow coming in. I could take a break because of the cash flow from real estate. And I remember being in Lisbon, and if you don't know Lisbon, it is such a hilly city, like insanity. And I remember seeing these elderly groups kind of going around, but you could tell that they were struggling, right? Because it's so steep. And I just thought about all of the travels that I had done like throughout my entire lifetime. You have to do those when you're young. Because when you get to 40, 50, 60, 70, it's just your body's not going to be as able to do it. And don't get me wrong, I'm trying to age in reverse. So I'm trying to still like, I'm trying to be like those Colorado 80-year-old hikers. But still, it's just, it is different. And those younger experiences, like more youthful experiences that you have traveling, those are also going to shape everything in your life going forward.
100%. The value of $1 at 30 years old versus the value of $1 at 80 years old is not the same.
No, not at all. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I know we kind of went on a bit of a tangent here, but tell me a little bit more about the co-living strategy that you, like, why did you pick the co-living strategy? What even is it? And how have you done it and differentiated yourself?
Love it. You've activated my trap card. So if I go on too long, stop me. But number one, what is co-living? So we'll start with the basic definition, and then we'll jump into how I'm currently doing it. So co-living at its core is taking a multi-unit or multi-room property, and instead of one lease for the entire place, so let's just take a 3-2 single family home. Instead of one lease to an entire family, you go and create 3 individual leases per room in that single family house. And there's a couple of benefits to this. Number one, you bring in more cash flow. So if a normal 3-2 rents for $1,500, but you rent out each room for $800, you're now bringing in $2,400, and now you're maximizing the potential revenue for that same property. So number one, at the core, that's what it is. And a couple different categories of co-living that we're seeing is, number one, there's affordable housing co-living. There's also sober living. And there's also a third category I deem called community living. Affordable housing is what we're hearing within pad split and taking a single family house and getting up to maybe 10, 11, 12 bedrooms. And they're offering homes, safe, affordable rooms at a $600 to $800 price point. And it allows people of, in their first couple stages or early stages of career, working at Starbucks, fast food, grocery store workers that need a place to live. But a $600 apartment is going to put you in a really rough area. So it's really amazing what PadSplit's doing. If everybody in the US offered up their room for rent, we would solve the homelessness problem and more. So it's really amazing what they're doing. Number two is sober living, where typically through grant programs, you're taking a home and being able to rent it out to people going through rehab, going through a transition stage of life. And they usually have some sort of manager or live-in rehabilitation programs, which is really amazing as well. Number 3, which is what we are working on, is community-based living, where you build co-living houses around a shared set of values, beliefs. Think a skateboarding house or a content creation house. For us, we're building faith-based co-living houses throughout Austin, and we're bringing people together with the mission to help people reach their God-given potential. And we have a lot of amazing entrepreneurs, creatives, but just people in their faith that want to spend time together.
I love that. I love that. Okay, a couple of questions. So are these furnished? Like, are you furnishing all the bedrooms, all the common spaces, or do people bring their own furniture for the bedrooms? How does it usually work?
Yeah, absolutely. So for co-living properties like Pad Split, majority of the time they're furnishing everything. So the common spaces, the bedrooms, the minimum lease at a time is 1 week. So it has to have the opportunity for people to pop in and pop out as needed. There's also, think about digital nomad houses where people only plan to stay for a few months at a time. They don't have stuff to bring. They need the convenience of it. So ultimately, it's whether you furnish it or not is depending on your demographic. For us and our creators co-living properties, we are doing 1-year leases so people can build community and go deeper. So because it's longer term leases, we only furnish the common areas. We'll furnish the living rooms, any extra loft spaces, backyard spaces, everything except the bedrooms.
Okay, awesome. And so how did you come up with this idea of like a faith-based community? Like, where did that even come from?
Absolutely. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are just trying to solve the problems they once had for themselves when they were younger, or even just any previous stage of life. And for me, there was a point in my time in Austin in 2022 where I found myself really lonely. I had people around me, but sometimes you can be in a room, and it's a cliche that we've heard, you can be in a room with full of people but still feel alone. And loneliness is an emotional experience. And what that means is, do you have people, one, physically around that you can spend time with, but do those people understand where you are in life? Do they understand the things that get you excited? Do they understand the feelings that you're going through can actually be for you in that way? And I found myself a point in Austin where I didn't have that community. I was transitioning into a lot of self-help, personal development, and it was just this transition where I felt like my friends didn't get it. I still love them to death. I still want to spend time with them. And then there was just this period I just felt super, super lonely. And ultimately, through my co-living house, one of the tenants and roomies I have in there ended up inviting me out to church. And I started meeting other people that were of faith in their faith walk and doing some really amazing things here in Austin. So through my involvement, through the church, through my small group and the people that I love, I realized that I wanted to create this environment for more people that were going through what I was going through. So it's a full alignment of my passion, my personal life, my work life, and now my real estate investing life.
No, I love that, because I know for me, my next endeavor is to do like, everyone's doing the boutique hotel thing, but I'm really passionate about boutique hostels because I traveled a lot when I was younger, like so much. Traveled in hostels, did the whole shebang throughout all of my youth. And the thing I loved about hostels while traveling is you always had a community. You had people to go eat dinner with and go do excursions with and go out with, and it was always the same people. So you could be somewhere for a few days or a week and really kind of create that tight-knit community. Like, I still have friends that I talk to from years and years of travel, like a long time ago. Versus you start to get older, hostels kind of suck. They're gross. They're not, you don't want to stay in a bunk bed with people, all that stuff. And it's also just a way younger crowd. But so you start staying in hotels and Airbnbs. And don't get me wrong, I like a bougie hotel and I like a bougie Airbnb. But you don't get that sense of community when you're traveling. So traveling can start to feel a lot more lonely. You don't really meet people as much, all of that stuff. And so I'm looking to kind of merge that, because I still love to travel. I don't love solo travel as much anymore because I've done it so much in my life, and I'm all about just like creating more memories with people that I love and really just kind of curating more experiences for people to do things together versus alone. But I still see that there's such a big gap there because there are a lot of people who are creating it for digital nomads who are traveling for long periods of time, but less so for some of those shorter trips and things like that. Like it's a little bit harder to create more of that community. So
Wow.
yeah.
I feel like you've been inside my head because I've literally been thinking about this exactly. I just came back from a solo trip in Mexico. Not to get too far off, I had this beautiful Airbnb, beach view, all these things. And I paid to quote unquote stay at a hostel that night just so I can go meet other people and then walk right back to my Airbnb. It's the exact same thing. And what I think it's super cool. Thank you for sharing that dream with me because that is essentially co-living just with shorter quote unquote leases.
Yep.
That's all it is. And I think this is a really good transition into I love this because the reason I like co-living is because it is built in community. I'm really passionate about third places. Are you familiar with that concept?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I love third. Oh, so I was born in the UK. So I'm really like European at heart. And I feel like Europe does it so well in terms of the third places. Like there's always that extra place for people to go to. But here in the US, there's just way more of that division.
100%. There's individualism. And for the listeners wondering what third places are, it's the places you hang out first and second to your home and your workplace. Third place is that local park. It's that local coffee shop. It's that local city center that you walk past. And I think we don't really have this experience, but think Italy. You walk to work and on the way home to work, you get to stop by the town park. You see your uncle, second cousin, your friend, and you have this conversation. And that's what I want to build. And that's what we are building in the co-living communities is how do you have built-in community where you don't have to go out of your way because we all live busy lives. You ask somebody how they're doing nowadays, I would put my money on it that 80% of the time, like, I'm good, just busy. So how can we take away or align with, hey, we're still going to work a lot. We're still going to be busy, but how can I have community as I am warming up my food in the kitchen during breakfast? It's that conversation in between at the breakfast table that wasn't planned where community starts to get built. But in our houses, we want to create essentially quote unquote third places where the backyard and the living room and the layout of those spaces, we have an interior design company that really thinks about how do we design these spaces to facilitate conversation, to facilitate community. It's like if a couch is centered wrong away from the main area of the house, it's not going to inspire as much conversation if it's an open concept that's really welcoming and inviting. So all to say, it's something I think about a lot as we're building our community.
I love that. And it really just shows too that there are so many ways to do real estate, right? Like, and I think both of us it's probably our personalities just have geared more towards the like purpose-based investing in the sense of it like really funding our lifestyle, right? And like that kind of investing versus, and there's nothing wrong with just buying properties and stacking up properties and all of that because there's a level of that as well. But you have to think about what is going to keep you continuing to invest, continuing to change things. And sometimes, like at first, it's just getting that first property. But I do think that there comes a time where you think about, okay, I could get 50 properties, but will I be motivated to, like, is this still aligned with my purpose and where I want to go and things like that? So I love that you're really thoughtful about the properties that you're getting and why you're doing it and how you're doing it.
Yeah, because the co-living community I'm building is with some of my best friends. And we go, first, we're best friends. Number two, we all go to the same church together. All of our people and community all hang out, and then we get to build a business around that. And I think you're totally right. Like you can go after the dollars and cents, but what I've learned in at least my own life is that when I've tried to optimize strictly on financial, it's missing so many other spheres of my life. And I rather make less on something, knowing that I am in my purpose around the people I want, because that's ultimately going to make more money for me. And I think money should be a byproduct of things that you love, not the thing that you chase. Why is it that the billionaire and millionaire are some of the most depressed people? Because they get to the end of the big house, the big car, the Ferrari, and they're like, I have nobody else around or the purpose around it. Why did I build all these things? So take all my material possessions. If I'm on my purpose, my people, love it. That's all I want.
I love that. I love that. And okay, one quick question too. What are some mistakes that you're seeing people make within the co-living space? Like what are some common mistakes that you see and what people should kind of steer away from?
Absolutely. So if you think about Airbnb in the original days, you could just post up your grandma's house with bad pictures and Hobby Lobby vomit design with every single color. And it would do like okay back then. And I think it wasn't until today, like we're seeing the craziest Airbnbs with double pools and all this decking and bright, all this crazy amenities that people are having, putt-putt courses, etc. The reason why it got that way is because people saw a need in the market to now differentiate themselves and be better than what is currently the standard. And as more people get into Airbnb, that bar keeps raising.
Yeah.
We're in the early stages of co-living right now where people don't want to think about design. They just kind of want to throw it up. And I'm starting to see more competition. I'm starting to see more supply. A lot of people are looking for a next strategy, and co-living is the one specifically that a lot of people are talking about. So if you can be ahead of the curve, you can design a beautiful space similar to how you would think about an STR. Maybe you don't have the same amenities, but the same level of intention and thought process behind it. You're going to attract better quality tenants. And the better quality tenants you have, the better community you're going to have. The longer people are going to stay there. And I think people are really scared to spend more money. But it's a lot of times when you spend more money in the front end, you end up making more money in the long run. What you save today ends up costing you in the long run. You just don't see it right away. So
totally. No, and it's some people also are like, well, I'll just do this later. But you don't realize that when later comes, then you have to shut down your listing. You got to do it. You're literally losing money, and it could be in a peak time that you're losing this money. And it's just do it right from the beginning. People, trust me.
Do it right. At the end of the day, as an investor, you make money by one, what cash flow comes in minus your costs. That's your profit. And people try to cut in the cost so much, but they don't think about how much more revenue would I bring in if I just spent a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Completely. Now, I know I'm so excited because you helped one of my students, Ariana, purchase her first co-living property.
Congratulations,
which is
Ariana.
so exciting. So freaking exciting. And I'm so excited to see what she ends up doing with it. I know she is going to be working with a mutual friend of ours who's a designer to help her kind of get it up and running. So I'm just really excited to see. And so thank you for helping her throughout that entire process as well.
Amazing. Yes. She's amazing. I'm so happy to see it. My mission is help as many millennial minorities get into investing. And for somebody that didn't know if she can get that first property because of qualifying, and it makes it really difficult sometimes, we found a great way through creative financing to get this deal done for her. So thank you and props to you.
Frigging amazing. Well, we are getting to the end of the episode here. I'm going to ask you the 3 final questions I ask every single person who comes on the show. So number 1, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Ooh, my ideal perfect day would be, let's see. So I've been thinking about sleep a lot. So sleep isn't the end of today. It's the beginning of tomorrow. So my perfect day started with me going to sleep with no screens a couple hours before. I got into bed, fell asleep almost immediately, and had an amazing deep sleep. And had I checked my Oura ring score, and it was 100, a perfect 100. And then from there, ultimately, I would be able to check in on my friends, my family, get a little bit of work done because I love what I'm building and I don't consider it work. I get to push the ball forward. I get to connect with some friends, got some great movement, some sun, and just great sleep. That is my perfect day.
I love it. Well, and it's one of those where people don't realize how most people's actual perfect day is so simple.
So simple.
Okay, question number 2. What is your mantra?
Ooh, what is my mantra? I'm going to, off the top of my head, I would go back to and just steal from question number 1. Sleep is not the end of today, it's beginning tomorrow, because that is all I'm thinking about right now.
No, I love that. So sleep is one of those things where I feel like I've got a lot of things down in my life. Sleep is not one of them, and it's quite unfortunate. And it's like, I feel like every few months, it's one of those things I'm like, oh, I need to be better at this. And I just haven't cracked the code for myself yet on how to be better at sleep.
step one, before you think about real estate investing, before you start thinking about your money, before you try to optimize for all these things, are you getting good sleep? I would start
Yeah.
there.
Yep. No, I love that. And this is inspiring because so I just got back from London, and the great thing about it is, I didn't really change my sleep schedule much. I ended up staying up way later there because I had like events I had to go to and weddings and blah, 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 blah. But the nice thing is that now I'm waking up earlier here, but I'm also going to bed earlier. I'm like, okay, we can make this work. We can make this work. So I'm committing.
Yeah.
I'm committing.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
You heard it here first. Committing to it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, last question. What does wealth mean to you?
That's a really good question. So it's not an arbitrary number. It's not X dollars in the bank account. It's the opportunity. Because for me, my absolute dream is to have a huge family, God willing and able, 5 kids, huge family where at Christmas we have a microphone because there's so many people running around.
Oh my gosh.
idea of wealth is that if any kid or my future partner called at any time of day of the week, doesn't matter if it's Monday morning, doesn't matter if it's Friday afternoon, that I've had the freedom and flexibility to drop everything that I'm doing and go right to them. That would be my version of wealth. They want to go on vacation, done. They have something tough going on in their life, I'm dropping everything. So I think when we become a slave to the dollars and cents in our work, then it ultimately takes away the reason why we end up doing those things in the first place.
Yep. I love that. Dropped so many good bombs on this one. So good. Well, so Devin, if anyone wants to reach out to you, maybe they want to buy a property in Austin, maybe they want to learn more about co-living, maybe they want to move into one of your co-living spots, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Amazing. The best way would be through Instagram, Dang Devin, ATX, Devin with an I, the only way you spell Devin, and reach out on there. And we can take you through the first step. Something that I love is I know a lot of people are, one, they either have a property or they're about to buy one and they have no idea what to do with it. I've done every single strategy from short-term rental, mid-term rental, co-living. I've done it all. And I usually charge for it. But for your community, if anybody wants a free analysis of what I honestly think would be the best for their property, reach out on Instagram. I'm happy to walk them through it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Devin. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Wonderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.